We're back.
We're back.
Today we talk about Chapter 4 from the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Chapter 4. Create a sense of urgency and desperation. The death ground strategy. Now, you're always talking about creating a sense of urgency to a certain extent because you're always saying that I don't have time, right?
I have less time.
You have less time than, let's say, somebody who's younger, which that's not guaranteed, but statistics or probability
Right.
is that you'll be around less time than me, right?
For sure. I hope so. I hope it goes in that direction. Yeah. I don't want it the other way around. No father does. No mother does. Right? So, Anyway. Yeah, so, as you get older, the law of numbers tells you you're not going to be around all that much longer, right? You look at the average lifespan for, I believe the average lifespan for a man is 73. Okay? Yeah, so if you look at it that way, that puts you in a sense of urgency, like right away. Whatever you want to do, you better get it done. Especially me, that would leave me, 7 years? That's, for someone that unfortunately is ill and has, let's say, cancer or some other issue that shortens their lifespan, and they are aware of this, that's like a death sentence, right?
Yeah.
Somebody may have 2 years left, 3 years left.
Mm-hmm.
They would give an arm and a leg for 7 years, right? So if you put things in perspective,
It's interesting you bring that up. Yesterday, I rewatched the movie The Dallas Buyers Club with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, okay.
And he's given 30 days. He goes in because something happened to him. He ends up in the hospital. They check his blood, and he has HIV. And his T-cell blood count was so low, and the doctor came to him and said, you have 30 days. He doesn't accept that, and then he goes to the extent of even going to Mexico to find experimental drugs that are not approved from the FDA, and that's the whole movie, right? He's willing to do whatever it takes to cure himself because the doctors weren't helping him at the time. This is in the 80s, I believe.
Okay.
And talk about urgency. I mean, nothing mattered except him just getting better because he thought he was okay, and all of a sudden 30 days.
Wow.
I mean,
that is a brutal reality to throw at someone.
Brutal. And it's an excellent movie because the drugs they were giving at the time was a drug called AZT, and it was killing at the time, I guess, the patients they were giving it to.
Oh.
So he said, I don't want that poison. That's why he went through, and now he created the Dallas Buyers Club, a bunch of people that had HIV, and he was giving them his cocktail of vitamins and different things he was getting from all over the world. But what a powerful movie. But, one thing Robert Greene talks about is that he says, life has more meaning in the face of death. That's a quote from the book.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody who you think is healthy and young, I feel I'm healthy and young. Urgency, I gotta say, is a challenge for me.
Okay.
Because I think I have a lot of time. So it's difficult. For me, sometimes I think, I can let things develop. I'll do well in 5-10 years because I have time on my side. But you have a different approach.
Oh, for sure.
I need to do, if I'm going to invest in something, it needs to make money today.
Correct. So the idea, since we're in real estate, the idea is I need to make my money when I buy the property.
Yeah.
That wasn't my idea when I was in your shoes 30 years ago. You know, I had the luxury of thinking, okay, that I had time, okay? Because I'm going to give you a quote right now that's going to shape you all up real quick, right straight out of the chapter. But, you know, because if you're 30 years younger, all you had to do was buy one property a year, okay, and as time went by, your 30-year loan gets paid off. So if you're able to keep those properties, at the end of the day, you're going to have what? You know, 30 properties all paid off, potentially, right? 30 years later, or almost all paid off, right? So there's a lot of techniques you can do, accelerated all that stuff, payments. But to your point, the chapter says, nothing seems to be urgent to you. So you are only half involved in what you do. That's straight out of the book. I took that note. And I can see that, you know, where you think you have time. Not you. I'm not talking about you, Mike.
Well, I'm talking about me.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about maybe younger people.
Yeah.
And if it's you, it's you. If it fits you, right? If the
Yeah,
shoe
it fits
fits.
me. Yeah, he was talking to me in this chapter.
Yeah.
He was talking to me because
Because?
I feel that, so I'm 34 now, but I feel that I have the benefit of time to allow things to develop. You know, if I'm following up with somebody because I'm working on a deal, I have time to let things, oh, it's okay, I'll follow up in a year, 2 years. Yeah, when they're ready. And when you have urgency, when you're on death ground, as Robert Greene says, you don't have time, and you fight with 3 times, 5 times, with 5 times the will of somebody who thinks they have options.
Right.
And that's a struggle for me.
Okay. Well, no. Well, it's part of being young and growing up and
Comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. He says when you're comfortable, you're you when you're comfortable, you don't have urgency. You don't have the same urgency as if tomorrow, you're like knowing that tomorrow you're not here. So like, what would you do today? I mean, as I'm prepping for this, I'm doing other activities and doing other things. And one of the things that I was doing was I was washing dishes, and I'm thinking like, if this is my last day, remember he gets into the act where he says,
Yes.
that Don Juan, it was something having to do with the author, I think, of Don Juan.
Mm-hmm.
And he says each act, right, in life, like if this is your last act in life, this is my last moment, is washing the dishes.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wash the dishes the best way I can.
Well, if you knew that the end was near, you wouldn't be one. You
wouldn't
don't want to
wash
wash dishes, right? You want to spend time potentially somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have children, with your children, if you have grandkids, with your grandkids, if that's what you want to do, or you want to travel. I know a lot of people that want to travel. But what happens, so I just turned 66. What ends up happening is that I don't think about death, okay? It's not like I wake up and I say, oh, I've got less time on this earth. I don't think about that, okay?
But you just know it. You bring it up a lot.
Well, the reason, because I have friends around me that are, getting sick. They're
Passing away.
Passing away. We just had a death in the family 3 days ago. We had another death in the family 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I know another gentleman that passed away. I know another guy that, we would talk to about all the time because we're improving our channel, folks. Thank you very much to everybody. to our subscribers and everything. We're improving the channel, and this gentleman will give us all kinds of IT.
He was in the video and photography space, and he was always Mark. He was a good man.
Good man.
We went into his store and we saw his picture on a little frame that he had passed.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
Now he's my age.
Yeah.
And he just, had a stroke, and he couldn't come out of it, unfortunately, and
Very sad.
very, very sad. But that hit me really hard because I hadn't seen him in a couple months. And I go in there and I ask, hey, can I talk to Mark, please? And I'm sorry, he passed away.
Yeah.
I was taken aback. But see, that's the brutal facing and awakening of we're here one day and literally gone the next.
Yeah.
And there are no guarantees.
So how do you... Okay, so what would you say to somebody
So
like...
just real quick. So it's not like I'm thinking about dying all the time. That's not the case. In fact, very few times do I think about dying, because I'm involved in a lot of other things that I consider it to be, I'm creating something.
You're living.
I'm living life,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to get me one day, but I'm not thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? But I've got friends dropping like flies. I've got family also. So it brings it back into the reality of your...
Psyche.
Yeah, for sure. Because, what do you do? And you see family members that are suffering and friends that are suffering because of things that happens.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I'm still fortunate to be able to be quite active, but there's a lot of my buddies that can't do half the stuff I can do. And so, it's all about point of reference, I think. And I know I interrupted you, sorry.
No, so you still have a sense of urgency.
Oh, for sure.
And one of the things that Greene says is that later in life you can become comfortable and you don't have that sense of urgency. So you're living in a state of urgency still.
Yes.
You've been able to keep that.
Yes.
Even though a lot of your friends say, what are you doing? Slow down, retire, this and that, right? They're comfortable. You're not. But when you were 30, you also had a state of urgency. So what's interesting is Greene is saying, look, if you don't have that state of urgency because you had your parents who were elderly, dependent on you, didn't speak the language. It came from Cuba with, you guys all came together, and so they depended on you. So I think that pushed you. It was like you had no option. You had to figure out a way to take care of them. And so you did. But for somebody like me, who I don't have that situation, I'm not thrown in that situation. That's the problem. I think, Greene brings up 5 actions to create death, ground, and urgency. And I really went through them, and I feel like I've done some of them, but I don't know that I'm not going to have the urgency of a real situation like you had when you were 30, of your parents getting older and depending on you. It's completely different. The 5 actions are: stake everything on a single throw.
Yes.
Go all in on one thing.
Yes.
Act before you're ready.
Yes.
Take action even though you may not be ready. You find a way. Enter new waters. Be willing to jump into something new and get uncomfortable. Make it you against the world. So make the world your enemy, and you have to use hatred to fuel you. And then 5 is keep yourself restless and unsatisfied. And I think these are great points, but I don't know that I struggle with it, that it actually will move you. Because I feel I've done a lot of these things, and I'm not going to have the urgency of somebody who really is in a situation that, whether they're sick or, they have no food on the table. It's hard. I think that's one of the struggles. Is like you want to give your children everything, and that doesn't give any urgency to the child because they have a comfortable situation.
Well, if you give your child everything, you're in for a world of hurt because you're creating a monster. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for this, okay? But hey, that's why our channel is growing, because we're being genuine and we're speaking our mind. If you give your children everything that you didn't have, okay, you're creating a monster. And he's going to eat you up alive.
Let's say that you don't give them everything you didn't have, but let's say that you give them comfort.
Okay.
They won't have the urgency. I remember asking a very, very successful businessman that built an empire selling tamales.
Okay.
And I remember asking him because
Tamales.
tamales
Got it.
in East LA. And this gentleman said that his children were in the business and his family was in the business. And I said, that's so great, And he says, yeah, but, they don't, they're doing all right. But, it's something along the lines, it's not the same, right? And I said, what is the difference? And for him, it was one word. I said, what's the difference when you started it versus them? And he said, la necesidad. Necessity. And as much of a fan of Robert Greene I am, in all these action steps, he's saying create necessity. Maybe combat me on this if you think I'm wrong, or maybe I'm not looking at this correctly. He's saying create necessity by doing these things, by jumping in. But if you always have a safety net, then there is still the belief that you have a safety net. That's why Hernan Cortés burned those ships, so that those conquistadors that were with him, the 500, had no safety net anymore to go back to Cuba. And the belief that we might be able to send for reinforcements, we might be able to escape. He burnt those ships so that nobody could leave. And all you could do is fight the Aztecs until you either die or conquered Tenochtitlan, right?
Yeah.
Tenochtitlan. And it took him 5 years?
2 years.
2 years. 2 years
to get to the capital and take the Aztec Empire over. If you think about it, 2 years is not that long.
I thought it was a long time initially, but yeah, when you...
2 years.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
So what do you think? I know I'm throwing a lot out there because...
There's a lot I want to say. You are. So, I don't know that I want to bet it all in one throw. That's number one that Robert Greene suggests. And again, I love the guy. I mean, I think he's tremendous.
Like Elon Musk. He took all his money and reinvested it.
Yeah. It takes a lot of gut to do that. And at my age right now, I'm not willing to take that risk. Because I view that as a risk. If you're going to throw it all in one row, I'm not willing to do that. And the reason I'm not willing to do that is because the stability that I provide for my family is one of my, what do you call it, pet peeves? It's something I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Something that I'm proud to say this, right? But Robert Greene will not, like in the folks, if you go to the previous podcast, there's a point when we talk about a guy on the internet that says, hey, if you get married and it doesn't work, come back home. If you go and open a business and it doesn't work, come back home. Well, Robert Greene would not be
a fan of that.
A fan of that.
Yeah, because you always got to set a backup option.
A backup option, and you haven't burned your bridges.
No.
Even though the gentleman was also pushing, well, he wasn't.
You got to go out and it's too easy.
It's too easy.
You got to weigh out every single time.
It's funny. On Saturday, we went to a place to have dinner, and we were talking to the business owner who has become a friend, and he's very successful. And something very interesting happened. He came to our table to speak, and his eyes were a little watery. And he says, look, I just had a couple of elderly folks come to the front, and they wanted to sit down and eat, and they asked for a menu, and the lady quickly looked at me and said, hey, for the price of these items, I have to go home and cook. I that's what I need to do. And he was shocked and surprised. He almost invited them in on his dime to dine with them, but he did not. And he came to the table and he spoke with us. And he says, you know what? Look at this. Look at what's happening.
Wow.
So some people are going through a lot.
Yeah.
Because they don't even have the money to sit down at a restaurant, a fine dining, let's say, and be able to pay for a meal.
Yeah.
You know, they walked in there and they said, I have to go back and cook. All right. What creates a situation like that? And then we got into a very controversial topic where we were talking about foreigners coming into the United States as opposed to Native Americans that have been born here. And I'm not talking about Indians. I'm talking about everybody. The Indians, everybody else.
Yeah, because when you say Native Americans,
I know. I'm talking about...
You're talking about people that were born in the United States.
In the United States.
Yeah.
Okay? Compared to foreigners.
Right, because these people who walked in, he said they're from here. They were Americans.
Supposedly,
from the United States.
They look like they're retired.
And the owner of the business is an immigrant.
An immigrant.
So he was saying, wow. Because for him, he comes from a country that they have nothing.
Nothing.
Poverty. And so he's saying, people from America, you would think that they would be able to afford these things.
First of all, it's an assumption just because they're white people that, you know, they were born in America.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, he assumed that they were from the United States.
Okay? So, but anyway, let's go beyond that. Let's just say that they were.
He was just in shock. I thought, he was like in his mind, the way I took it is he was saying, I thought somebody who's from here, from the United States, would have the means to be able
regardless of color and race
would have the means to be able to buy something here, because he is not from the United States and he's
able to do it.
He owns the restaurant. So it was just interesting how he was putting that together.
So the conversation went on.
It has nothing to do with them being white. It's just
right.
For him, he took it that way.
But the point is that when you don't have something and you come to a country like the United States, okay? I remember my dad saying to the family, hey, we made it to the promised land.
Like in the Bible.
Let's go out and work. That's exactly what he said. First he said, we made it to the promised land. Now let's go out and work. Now he kissed the ground when he landed in the United States. But so the question lies in, and you folks, let us know what you think. Do you think that a foreigner that comes from a place where there's so much necessity sees opportunities everywhere here in this country and takes advantage of those opportunities more than a guy like you that was born in this country and that is comfortable and that, you know, sitting back in his chair?
The answer is yes, absolutely.
You think?
I know.
Okay.
I know. It's just you can't compare. I shared it with you that I was talking to a guy my age, 34, just got here from Cuba 2-3 years ago, and he was explaining the blackouts and that he risked his life to come from Cuba and had to go through Central America, Mexico, all this, and got to the United States. And we're the same age. And I said, you know, my father's from Cuba, my grandparents, but I'll never know how it is, what you've gone through, because even though I've heard through stories and I was born here. And he says, you'll never know. You'll never know. And we're the same age. And I thought for me that was, and I love to hear people's stories and I really try to connect with them, but there's a difference from actually living it. And so anyways, you know, I don't want to get too much into that. I think, but I think without a doubt, an immigrant is going to come here, especially when they come from a country of necessity, right? You have some immigrants that come and they have degrees and they're extremely, they came because the parents sent them. I mean, I went to school with a kid that his father sent him. I think he was from Japan, and the father would put tons of money in his bank account every month, and he was living here like a king. I remember he was wearing a $5,000 belt one day, and we're like 20 years old, 19, in junior college. I'm saying, how'd you get that? What is that? It was a Hermes belt or a Hermes belt. I say, he's like, oh yeah, my dad puts money in my. So there's different kinds of immigrants. We shouldn't, right?
Right.
We're talking about
Well,
people.
that's not the idea. And if we don't want anybody to get caught up in that, we're not trying to generalize or put people down in one way or another. We're just trying to see. We don't know the answer, folks. We're just juggling along and trying to figure things out right along with you guys.
But you're an immigrant and you had that necessity. Now your children, the children of immigrants, don't have the same necessity that you have because of what you and your wife, right, my mom, have built, right? You worked very, very hard, and we saw that, and that's part of us, and that's in our DNA now. The hard work that you guys, it's ingrained in us. You got to work hard.
Well, we made it a point not to give you guys.
What I'm getting to is there'll never be the urgency.
No,
though.
it will never be the same. You didn't go through what I went through.
So how do we create that urgency in our youth, people my age, and for myself? I'm saying it a little selfishly. How do I create that urgency?
You're gonna have to throw them out there and make them work for a living.
No, I'm talking about myself. How do I create the urgency in myself? Because
well, Robert Greene is giving you 5 points that potentially you could follow, right? I like.
Maybe I'm not going. Maybe I'm not. There's something I'm missing about the 5 points.
Well, I'll tell you what. One point that I like a lot that I'm doing a lot more now in my 60s. I started doing this when I turned 60, or maybe just shy before that. Okay, one that resonates very much with me is enter new waters. Okay, and try to learn new things. And I'm here to tell you, it's frustrating as all get go. Okay,
yeah.
But entering new waters, and I did it because I wanted to keep my mind active. So, irregardless of success economically, we better stay active for our own health, for our physical well-being. And that's a message to be sent out to every age, not just the older guys.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you don't stay active mentally, okay, it's just like any other muscle. You don't use it, you lose it. You start getting cobwebs here, there, and everywhere. And I'm telling you that it will affect you in your later years. And there's so much to learn. An incredible amount of information out there. I don't care what field you pick. It's just absolutely incredible.
So entering new waters is the one that you've been now.
Yes.
Living. Yeah,
Yes.
I've seen it. I've seen you do that.
And the other one that I like is keep yourself restless and unsatisfied.
Like Napoleon.
Yeah.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Right. Unsatisfied from the point of, we're not talking economically, folks, because you can put
It could be economic.
It could be economics. But for example, when you're looking for an opportunity or something to do or whatever, how do I explain this? Once you get to a level, the money is no longer the issue. You do it because you like the process, you like the hunt, like they say, and you continue to do it, you get better at it, and so you like that process, and that keeps you active mentally, physically, everything, and so you move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. There's a guy on the internet, and I've said it, I'm on the internet way too much for my own good. There's a guy on the internet that now owns a truck, has 2 employees, and he has his business. But he's got a video that when he started, And he's got a business where he moves snow from the front of elderly people's homes that they can't do it. And so he has this business where they call him and he comes over and removes the snow from the front doors and stuff like that and makes sure that they're safe and stuff like that so they can walk out and so forth. And he's made a business out of that.
Wow.
Very, very profitable. Okay? Now listen to this. He's got a video when he started. He didn't have enough money to buy a shovel. So he used a piece of plywood that he cut somehow with a few edges, and he used that plywood to remove the snow. And he's got a video of that. And he says, look, that's what I'm doing. I didn't have enough to buy a shovel, but I knew I wanted to do something. I couldn't find a job. So what do? Do I sit in my couch at home and do nothing? If you do that, there's one guarantee. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you come out, so he found a piece of plywood. He found somebody that needed to move snow. And he said, hey, I'll move it for you. How much would you give me? And the person said, $100. Done. He got the plywood, moved it all out, got $100. Now he could feed his family. And he says, hey, maybe I can do this for a living. So he went and found somebody else, the same plywood. And that plywood fell apart real quick. But then he had money to buy shovels. And so, you know, that's a typical example of someone that came to this country, didn't have anything. And now he's got, I think, 2 trucks, 2 employees, his own business. He's doing very well.
Wow.
So, you know, put your children to work in something like that. You know, they need to, the struggles make the man. You say that all the time.
Yeah.
You say that all the time. I remember when you guys were younger, I called a couple of my buddies and I said, hey, can they work for you in the summer? Oh, yeah, but I mean, oh, no, don't put them in the office. Put them out in the sun with the rest of the people. And, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you worked, you had to get under houses and, you know, you worked for a termite company, you worked for a blinds company. Mm-hmm. So did your brother, right? Well, your brother didn't work for the termite, he worked for the blinds company. And your sister too. I put her out there too, a little bit more protected, but
Yeah.
it's hard to do, Mike.
It's hard.
And you're going to have an issue with your wife. I'm not saying you and your wife, but when somebody tries to do something like this, there's potential. And didn't you tell me one time you were having lunch with the guys and they said, why are you here? You should be in school. Remember that? Do you remember that conversation?
That was at the mini blinds factory.
At the mini blinds factory.
Yeah, they said, you should be in school. What are you doing here? Because I maybe was, 13 or something?
Right.
13, 14, around that age.
But I put you there on purpose.
Right. If you cannot afford to lose, you won't. Well, either that or you're out. Right?
Mm.
I mean, for me, what a cool analogy that Greene brings up of that servant to the swordsman, to the fencing master, is in a samurai book. He brings up a lot the Book of the Five Rings, by Miyamoto Musashi. I want to get it right. Thank you for this book.
You're welcome.
And he also brings up different samurai books.
Yeah.
But in this one, this servant is being told they're going to be killed, right? They're being sacrificed. And then the fencing master, to prove a point, challenges the servant to death, right? And he saw that because the servant knew they were going to die no matter what, they fought, even without the training and everything, they fought with an ability much greater than somebody who wasn't going to be immediate death, right? They had other options. Maybe they weren't going to be killed, but this guy was going to be killed. And so he even cornered the fencing master, up against a wall until the fencing master, in his desperation, struck him down and killed him. But he proved the point to himself and to the people there, I guess, that look, a desperate man, you don't want to challenge a desperate man.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And so Sun Tzu, straight out of the book, this chapter is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you guys think that every time we talk about every chapter is fantastic. But Sun Tzu, Robert Greene brings out, you get a desperate edge because your life depends on it. We respond viscerally. So you get this power because you have this desperation that your life depends on it. And that's what happened in that example that you're talking about.
My God.
So when a foreigner comes here to this country, let's just say the poor ones, right? The ones that didn't come with money like your Japanese friend, but the poor ones, they've got nothing. They've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You don't want to challenge those men and women because no matter what, it's up. You can't get any worse than when you are here and you have nothing. And then maybe that might be a reason why foreigners see opportunities where someone that's born here and been here for a few
And comfortable.
generations, doesn't see it. And I'm not sure that it's not, let's just say they don't see it, but not necessarily so because I'm not willing to do certain things now. You follow me? I've learned a lot of stuff, for example, in construction, stuff like that. There's some things that I will do, but there's some stuff that I need to get done that I don't want to do.
Right.
It's very heavy
You don't
work.
want to do. But you can't say never because
You can't, no.
I always remember the quote that Grandpa would say, the saying that you say, that Grandpa would say in Spanish, nunca digas de esa agua no beberé, right?
Right.
Porque mañana te estás bañando en ella.
Exactly.
Never say, I'll never drink from that water because tomorrow you're bathing in it.
Right.
And life seems to humble us.
For sure.
Just
It's
when
doing it to me right now.
It's doing it to me right now as well.
With my computer classes.
I think that the moment that it seems like such a common trend. I was listening to a interview of Lou Diamond Phillips, and he was talking about how he had these huge roles, and then all of a sudden he thought that he was in such high demand that he set the price so high, and he had these agents that were setting his price so high, and they moved on. And he was explaining how he was humbled. He had to go back to doing what he originally did, which was, I guess,
smaller roles,
plays, not movies. And then he did a play, The King and I, and that's where he was spotted again for something. But he thought he wouldn't have to do that again because he was such a big name. He had these huge roles, La Bamba and stuff.
Oh, like yeah.
Anyways, or maybe I'm mixing the timeline, but
well, no, La Bamba, he was very young and it exploded.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm
he
sure
was
that's
in Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
Lou Diamond Phillips. But life seems to humble us, and I think that this chapter is very powerful, and it makes me question what actions am I taking to put myself on death ground, because
you're not taking any.
No, I think I can definitely improve at that to create more urgency. Something needs to work today. How do I make, let's say, the business grow today? Whatever I'm applying myself to today, instead of thinking time. With time, things will develop.
Yeah. He gives the example of Joan Crawford, too.
Yeah.
Where she quit with MGM. She got out of the contract. And that was a huge move for her. She went to Warner Brothers. And she was still not getting that since you talked about Lou Diamond, she
Yeah.
was still not getting the parts that she wanted. But she convinced this director, and she did the performance of her life, and she got an Oscar for it. So, she thrived on risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people perform extremely well under pressure, and others don't. If you take me 40 years ago, okay, you would see a guy that was extremely organized and under pressure was not all that efficient. I became efficient under pressure as I got exposed more to business, and I got hit over the head with a 2x4 several times, coming out of nowhere from people you least expected. And then you harden up and you get stronger in your path. And so, but when I was younger, I was naive and, oh my goodness, this, oh my goodness, that. And, I think we're a product of our environment. I was raised by 4 very older people, and to a certain extent, they instill a little bit of fear in you, and you have to break those shackles away. So this is an excellent, because look, he talks about Dostoevsky. The guy was going to get
Fusilado.
yeah, a firing squad.
Firing squad.
Okay?
Or was it firing squad? Right?
Firing squad. They were going to shoot him in 23 seconds. If that carriage would not have come into the Russian, what were they? I forget exactly where. Right outside of their jail. It's a famous name, but the carriage came over and they said, "Hey, the Tsar has postponed your."
Changed your sentence.
Changed your sentence. It's no longer going to be a death sentence. If that carriage would have come 23 seconds later, okay, he would have been shot, and none of these very famous books that he wrote would have gotten done, and he made a big impact in not only Russian but in the entire world. Now, some people apparently went mad with that experience.
Interesting.
It depends on how you are to receive this kind of tremendous things, right? So apparently some of the people that were waiting also to be shot went crazy. But he took it like it was a rebirth.
Yeah. A second chance.
And he had to go through 4 years of concentration camp in Siberia, and because of his mentality, I'm sure he didn't think it was a walk in the park, but he made it through.
Yeah.
Where had he not had this experience that his life might have been taken away immediately, okay?
Yeah.
It would have been a different experience.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It is powerful because it changed his life. But see, there were a few others that went crazy.
Yeah.
They saw their lives go away and they were never able to recover from that experience. He took it another way. So I think it depends on the soil that you got inside of you. If you're thinking of planting something,
Yeah.
if the soil is ready, if it's nutritious, you'll plant a plant and it will flourish. Or if the soil is not so good, you don't water it, whatever, the plant won't grow. He was ready for a change, and that was a tremendous experience. The other people went crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why they say near-death experiences completely change your outlook on life.
absolutely,
You feel like it's a second chance.
I believe it. I believe it. And you probably...
You get rid of all timidity, all reservations, right?
Well, the book says, this chapter says, is it wrong to be a timid man? And he says, no, you can be a timid man as long as you live forever. So he's saying, of course it's wrong to be a timid man. You don't want to be afraid of things. You want to engage things. Now, at this point in my life and where I am also, I'm not willing to take certain risks.
Yeah.
But that creates opportunity for other people. Okay? I'm not willing to take certain risks at this point in my life,
Yeah.
and because of where I am, right? So there's some opportunities that I'm letting go by.
Yeah, somebody else would.
That's right. Somebody else will.
Yeah. That's why, go ahead.
No, that's it.
That's why when you give me advice, when I ask for advice, or when we're talking about something, I do take into account where you are in your life, and then where I am in mine. You're 30 years older than me. The other thing is, or somebody else giving me advice. Where are they in their life? Not only older and maybe less willing to take a risk, but also comfortable, right? But 30 years ago, you would have taken that risk potentially because you took risks and you failed.
Sure.
And that's how you learn.
Well, it was very important. I thought it was really cool. One time we were talking about this and you said, well, wait a minute. How about a 30-year-old Pablo? What would a 30-year-old Pablo have done? And I was telling you, don't do it. And when you said that, you just shifted everything. And I thought for a second, and I thought, I would have done it. When I was 30 years old, I would have done it. Yeah. So I remember that conversation with you. It was earth-shaking as far as I'm concerned. Because, you have to. And, some of the mistakes I've made have been because I did go to someone that was in a very comfortable position. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, this opportunity has come up. What do you think about this? He goes, I would never do that. And I follow that advice. And I've lived to regret it. But what do you do with regrets? You got to let them go and move on.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that you can do is become more successful, okay? So that you can say, okay, I didn't take that opportunity. That was something that potentially would have been really, really good, but I didn't do it, but I did this.
Right.
And I did this.
You keep living, you keep moving, you keep creating.
You keep moving. Yes. And I think that's the key, that word, creating. Mm-hmm. You keep creating. Anybody that's building something, I don't care what it is, okay?
Yeah.
You're building an internet business, or you're building because you're becoming a surgeon, and your building blocks are the knowledge, and you have your first surgery and then your second, and now you've got 400 surgeries under your lap, and you have all this. So anyone, I don't care what it is, you're a painter, you're an architect, you keep building, you keep creating. Mm-hmm. That keeps you busy in life.
Yeah.
And you feel useful, and you're doing a good thing for humanity. What more can you ask out of life? Before you know it, you're 66 or 70 something. I've got friends in the 70s, and so you need to make your mark now.
Yeah. What a great chapter.
Well, the previous chapter was also excellent.
Yeah.
The previous chapter was be in touch with the tone of the present day, remember? So
don't lose your presence of mind.
Yeah, don't lose your presence of mind.
Yeah.
So I really do think so. What is it that Confucius says? If you live in the past, you live in regret. If you live in the future, you're all stressed out. You're worried about it.
Yeah,
So,
if you live in the past, you're depressed. If you live in the future, you're anxious.
Right.
We have to live in the present. That's the way that I know it.
Yes, it is. So in the future, if you live in the future, you're anxious. If you live in the past, potentially you're depressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the tonic? What's the answer? Live in the moment.
Yeah.
Live today and make today the best you possibly can. And
Yep.
it'll take care of the future for you and your family. And teach that to everybody that you can. I think that's the way it is. Confucius said that. Yeah. These people, man, they're brilliant.
All right.
We kind of got taken out of the... I had a lot of notes here.
I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Thank you, everybody, listening and following and growing with us in this journey. And
we're making changes to the podcast, and we're going to keep growing.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.